What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Basketball, this week presented by District of Buckets. First things first, if you won your game last week, comment down below, GG, easy dubs. Love to see it. If you lost your game last week, you're going to want to stick around for this episode. So if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button, comment down below with any questions you have regarding basketball. We love to talk to our people. So let's roll the tape and get right into it. Wednesday pickups. You have the New Orleans Pelicans starting their back-to-back. Josh Hart and Willie Hernangomez are pretty much the only options to stream from those guys. So there's a little wiggle room in your streaming strategy here. You might want to keep some of those guys that I mentioned before that are just going to play on Wednesday instead of Josh Hart and Willie Hernangomez. But that's up to you. Willie Hernangomez, the only reason I mentioned him is because Steven Adams is battling a right ankle injury. He's been questionable and sitting, kind of going on and off in the last couple of days. Before I move into Thursday, Carl, would you like to interject for any of this?
I'd say Chetty Osman will come with a warning sign because he's kind of one of those, like you mentioned, so LeBron's protege. He's that type of guy where, like he may or may not get his numbers. Like he'll help the team do well at best, like every single game. So, like there's chances that like you'll see, like you could see the team rolling, but his numbers may not, necessarily add up to what they've been. I still think he has the talent and the ability to keep it up, but he will do whatever it takes to get a dub. And so sometimes his personal numbers will suffer. So that's just a little warning sign on him, and that's pretty much all I have from those guys.
Yeah, and if it wasn't clear, these guys are just streaming options. So these are people that you should probably pick up for their back-to-back and then drop, right?
Yeah.
For the next back-to-back.
Yeah.
So moving on into Thursday pickups. Got a couple of back-to-backs there. One of them being the Clippers. You have Patrick Beverley and Marcus Morris Sr., who are viable options for the Clippers back-to-back. We could see Kawhi Leonard or PG sit one of those back-to-back games. It's not likely, but it is possible. Since Pat Beverley has returned from his injury earlier in the month, he's played very well. He's been putting up very good fantasy points. Moving on into the Grizzlies back-to-back, DeAnthony Melton has been thrusted into the starting lineup due to the plethora of injuries in Memphis. He's very strong in defensive categories. He's been averaging almost 2 stocks per game over the last 5 games when he's been starting. So definitely a viable option for streaming on the Memphis Grizzlies. And then lastly, for Thursday pickups, I have Marvin Bagley. Marvin Bagley is starting in place of Rashawn Holmes. Rashawn Holmes has been having some right knee soreness. And for some reason, the Kings don't want to play Hassan Whiteside. But that's to Marvin Bagley's benefit. He's been playing exceptionally well when he's been getting these starts. And it seems like he's earned that spot in place of Rashawn Holmes being out. So definitely look for Marvin Bagley. He's putting it together in his 3rd year. Feels good to see him do well, especially after his injury-riddled beginning to the NBA. Yep. Friday pickups. Starting on Friday, you got some of the Indiana players that are always popular for streaming options. To name a few, TJ McConnell. Some interesting news for him. He's coming off the bench now, but he's still a consistent 25 fantasy point per game guy, even when he does come off the bench. You also have Jeremy Lamb, who lost his starting spot to Doug McDermott. And another guy that's still worthy of 25 fantasy points a game. And then to mention a few more, Justin Holiday and Doug McBuckets. They are also viable streaming options. Another 25 fantasy points per game, which when you average them out, it doesn't seem that great. But fantasy basketball, you don't win for averaging the most points per player.
Yep.
You win for having the most points, and that's why you get more people on the lineup every week. You're going to give yourself the best chance to win. And then my last Friday pickup is Isaiah Roby. He is likely to start one of the back-to-backs for OKC because, like I said before, Old Man Al is probably going to sit one of those out. He has been for the entirety of the year. So look for Isaiah Roby to get more usage than he usually does. Carl, before I head into the weekend pickups, anything you want to say about those people?
I really covered those well. Don't really have anything extra on those.
Cool.
Weekend time.
All right, Saturday pickups. Nerlens Noel on the New York Knicks is a defensive fantasy lock. Absolutely own him if you need steals and blocks, especially blocks. He's so good.
And there's you have Mitchell Robinson's hand injury, so that's also a potential keeper for a couple of weeks actually, because now it's like his his minutes increased drastically, and like since that injury, because like he's the guy they have, so like he might be worth more than just a weekend stream.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mitchell Robinson is out for, I think, 6 weeks or something with a right hand injury, and he's only 1 week into that. So Nerlens Noel is a solid streaming option for the Knicks on Saturday. And then Emmanuel Quickley. He's bound to get playing time soon.
Yeah.
Knicks fans are begging for him to get playing time. I don't know if it'll happen this week, but he's averaging about 20 minutes per game, even with Derrick Rose entering the team. He's an offensive stud. There's no other way to put it. The guy knows how to put the ball in the bucket. And then once again, we have the Wizards players that you should be looking out for: Rui Hachimura, Davis Bertans, and Neto. Because Neto, only in deeper leagues, just because Westbrook might sit out one of those back-to-backs. Sunday pickups. So these are people that will play the starting back-to-back on Sunday, entering in on Monday, helping you get a good start to your next week. And if you follow this fantasy strategy of picking up the most back-to-backs as possible, it's going to help you a lot. And this Sunday to Monday is one of those things that's going to make your team that much better every single week. So Sunday pickups, you have Charlotte, Cody Zeller. He's a consistent 25 piece. That's 50 fantasy points for your team right there. Then you have the Bulls players. All the opportunity there from Lauri Markkanen being out, Otto Porter being out. You got Garrett Temple and Wendell Carter Jr. They're getting solid minutes for the Bulls right now. Lots of opportunity for them. Garrett Temple less than Wendell Carter Jr., but Garrett Temple also has probably the higher ceiling of those two people for that week. And then this is a guy that we're going to touch on a little bit later, or at least Carl is, Sean Tate. Full-time roster spot.
Yeah.
He's playing like 40 minutes per game. He averages the most minutes per game for all of Houston, including John Wall, including Victor Oladipo. Even when Christian Wood is back, Sean Tate still plays the most minutes out of everybody. So if he's not already rostered in your league, pick the man up. The dude's balling, especially if you're in a deeper league. He's not owned in that many leagues. So if he's not owned and you're in a 12-team league, full-time roster spot instantly. So those are your waiver wire pickups. And like I said before, you're going to start picking up 2 guys on Monday, hopefully, if you have those 2 streaming positions in your league. Pick up those 2 guys, and then start staggering every other. You pick up the next back-to-back, and that's going to maximize how many games you play in a week. If there's a guy like Sean Tate available, that could mess up your streaming strategy just because he could be a must-add in your league. You never know. Carl, I know you don't necessarily have the streaming strategy, but you have guys that we should be looking at to pick up regardless that you wanted to touch on.
Just straight up buy low, sell high, or just waivers.
The waiver wire guys, yeah. We'll move into buy low.
Okay, so we mentioned 3 of my waiver wire guys just for potential long-term pickups. I'm going to start off with, we just talked about Sean Tate, and we talked about his minutes. He's literally doing so much right now for this team, and they're not necessarily playing well, especially with Christian Wood out. And as you said, he's still going to have those, the highest minutes even when Christian Wood comes back. So like I don't know what percentage he is. He's rostered in 20.1% of leagues. 20.1. That's unacceptable. And in the last week, he's
like
playing
20 minutes a game, average of 21.
Yeah, 36.5 minutes in the last week of action. And he, as you said, he hovers around like 30. So he's at 27.2 for the season. And like, just looking at this production over the last couple of weeks, like the minutes are there, the production is there. He does everything. There's like just a tiny little bit of everything for the Houston Rockets who need him. And again, I'm gonna keep saying it because I'm gonna drill it in everybody's head who's watching this. If you see him available, go get him right now. Like, you have to go get him. The Rockets have nobody else really on that roster that's gonna chop into his minutes at this point. That's my first one. Second one, we touched on this. We touched on everyone. Rui Hachimura as a potential long-term ad. He'd be a guy if you're comfortable, just having some sort of depth on your bench, not necessarily leaving a streaming spot open, but that's his role. Because he's also getting to the point where like his role in the Wizards is expanding, and then you see Westbrook and Beal finally meshing together. The whole team's playing a lot better. They're figuring some things out, and again, another opportunity guy where Rui was drafted where he was drafted for a reason, and he's shown it in flashes, and now the consistency is slowly coming together for him, and he's going to be a guy that's, basically, I'll say on a good day and on a bad Bertans shooting night, de facto third option, at least with the shots he's going to get that night. He's going to be one of the top rebounders for that team. He's defending everybody at this point. They don't have any other options if they're going to put on almost anybody who's like 6'5" and above. They don't have that many options of a guy that you really want to put on them defensively other than Rui. And while, it's not the best, it's, again, too much opportunity for anyone to pass up. And then with one more guy that we touched on this week, Nerlens Noel. That's pretty much self-explanatory at this point. Like they don't have Mitchell Robinson. Like, he's playing all of the minutes at this point for centers in New York. Where, let me look it up right now. His jump in minutes was pretty significant too. His jump in minutes, in comparison to his average. So his average is about 18.9 minutes a game, and in the last week he's got about 10 more, a little less than 10 more, at 28.5. And 28.5, he's a capable shot blocker, plays defense really well. I mean, he's not going to score a whole bunch however, when he does score, high efficiency because it's right around the rim. So he's a guy that until we hear any other, injury news from Mitchell Robinson, like, he should be sitting on somebody's roster. And then, again, a deep league guy, Sadiq Bey for deep leagues where, he's kind of the same thing where it's opportunity. You see that they're trying to move Blake Griffin now, and then, they've had a bunch of roster turnover, and they're definitely looking towards the youth of that team, and he's a big part of what they want to do in the future. So Sadiq Bey is a guy in deeper leagues that I think you should have on your roster right now.
Yeah, he's kind of hooping.
Yeah,
not necessarily in his last two, but definitely before that he was playing really well. But thanks for that, Carl. We got to move into buy low, sell high.